Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 65 with Amanda Boleyn. Hey, friends. Welcome back to this episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess. I am your host, and man, my voice is struggling. It has been such a fun time back in the States. If you aren't following along kind of in real time, this podcast might be a couple days delayed, but I have been in the States on kind of a pseudo summer holiday / working holiday. I'm back visiting friends and family, visiting my condo in Chicago, and just making sure everything is in check there. And actually, I paid that visit just a couple days ago. I was there for about 3 to 4 days, and I actually got to hang out with 2 really wonderful friends of mine and fellow business owners. One of them has been on the podcast before. Her name is Natalie Bacon. She's considering a move to Chicago, so we got to stay there and I got to show her around. She stayed in my place with me. And then the other is actually this week's guest on the show, Amanda Boleyn, and she actually was a fellow roommate of mine. We used to live together for many years, and she's the guest on this week's show. So we, all 3 of us, got together and just kind of had an impromptu mastermind weekend. And that's probably the big reason why I have lost my voice, because the past few months, I haven't been talking as much. I spend most of my days in a country where people don't speak my language, and I don't speak great Italian, so, working on it, but not quite fluent enough where I'm going to be talking. So I spent the last couple of days surrounded by 2 wonderful women where we were chatting and talking all about business and personal life and just all of that stuff. And my voice was probably like, what the heck is going on here? And it decided to just sort of give up on me a little bit. We're hanging on by thread. Anyway, I'm about to record a solo show for next week, and you guys are going to probably laugh because my voice will probably just end up disappearing mid-sentence a couple of times. So we'll see how that goes. But I did want to let you know that every month you're going to get a solo show from me. I'm considering notching it up to be every other episode. And so I would love to hear from you. And that leads me to letting you know how you can leave your comments, your feedback, your questions about each of the episodes. There are 2 options for you to do this because, podcasting makes it a little bit difficult for you to ask questions and give feedback because you're just on an app and there's no real comment section. But a way you can do it is, first, you can always go to the episode's show notes, and you can always find those by going to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode and then the number. So as an example, this week's podcast will be wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 65. You can find the show notes, and then you can ask any questions by leaving a comment on the show notes. Another option is you can just join us in the Wealthy Wanderers private Facebook community. It's a great community to be a part of regardless, because you'll be surrounded by other listeners or readers of the blog or watchers of the YouTube channel, and you can surround yourself with like-minded women who are chasing after very similar goals. And you can find that at wanderwealthy.com/FB. So the first one is wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode and then the number. The second one, joining the community, is wanderwealthy.com/FB. So those are the places you can get more information. You can post things and just be more involved and engaged in this community that we're building. And I'd love to hear your feedback, especially around the big question of the day, which is, how often do you want to hear a solo show from me? I love kind of giving my one-to-one advice, tips, tricks, strategies, and whatnot. So if that's something you like, I'd love to hear it. My voice is tired, so let's get into today's episode. Miss Amanda Boleyn is my guest, and she is the founder and host of She Did It Her Way. Through She Did It Her Way, Amanda educates and coaches women on how to successfully make their side hustle their main hustle, aka make the leap from corporate America into full-time entrepreneurship. Now, the really cool thing for me and how I feel, or why I feel that this episode is so special, is because Amanda and I were longtime roommates, and she was actually there when I was making this leap from corporate America to full-time entrepreneurship. And she gave me some really great advice. And I can say that she's really a great coach and encourager on how to go about making that big change, because it is a really big change that you'll go through in your life if you are ever at this point of going from side hustle to main hustle. Now, I know this podcast is a money podcast, and the reason why I was also excited to bring Amanda on the show is because we had so many nights where we would just sit there and talk about money, talk about personal development, talk about all those things. And we had a relationship that was really cool. And I felt really lucky about it because we felt comfortable talking about these really taboo topics. We talked openly about money, and you'll hear kind of us reminiscing and sharing these experiences, shared experiences that we went through, going from making really good income to, seeing a cut in our wages, so to speak, and also making this transition and just kind of everything in between. And we really did talk pretty intimately about things that we had experienced in life, and talking about money mindset and all of those things you just don't typically get to talk about with your girlfriends. So I hope that this kind of opens up your mind and also conversations between you and your girlfriends, knowing that this is not necessarily taboo. People might think it is, but it's totally normal. And there are ways to have healthy and non-judgmental conversations about this stuff. Amanda, to me, she's always been that productivity guru. So she's sharing her best productivity tips, best money tips, and all things in between. That's about it. That's all my voice can handle for now. So let's get into this episode. Here is episode number 65 of the Wander Wealthy podcast with Amanda Boleyn. Amanda, hello. How are you?
Hi, Tess. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's so good to have you here on the phone and on the pod because as I've been telling the audience, all the peeps listening, my goal for the revitalization of the podcast has been to just have conversations with my friends. And you are very obviously my friend. So I've introduced you professionally, but I'd love you to tell us your personal story and kind of your background. Both you can touch on professionally, but also your background about life and money and how you got to where you are today. And if you want, also include how we know each other.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on the Wander Wealthy podcast. I'm so excited that you have revitalized what used to be Words and Money to the Wander Wealthy podcast. And it is a pleasure. And let's see, where do I begin? Do we have all day? No, we have 25, 30 minutes. So I'm going to do this as condensed as possible. I grew up in Iowa. I graduated college in 2010. I spent a year working at Target in their stores. Then I transferred and took a bridge job, is what I call it, into Wells Fargo as a recruiter. And then from there, I went out on my own as an independent contractor, which you can definitely read more online about the story and everything. And in 2012 is really when it catapulted my entrepreneurship experience, if you will. And then in 2015, I launched She Did It Her Way, which was also with you at the time. And so now, 3 years later, it has turned into this full-fledged online resource helping women launch businesses when they are working full time so that they can ultimately take the leap and start living the life that they want and becoming their own boss. So we do that through 2 podcast episodes a week, along with a monthly membership society, monthly membership called Her Way Society. And then we have an annual event, She Did It Her Way Summit, where we get to actually meet everyone in person in the community. And it's really great. But yeah, I mean, that is the short version of the story and the life of Amanda Boleyn. I can certainly dive in more in detail in certain areas because there is so much to share, whether it's life or money.
Yeah, I love it. And we met through a conference and then we were roommates.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. We were just both moving to Chicago and
yeah, I actually remember that day. So I had in 2011, I attended Succeed Faster, which is actually the conference that we later on met at. I think it was either a year later or 2 years later. And the year that we met, I remember I think it was the Austin airport. It was some airport in Texas, I want to say, because the event that year was in San Antonio. Mm-hmm. And I just remember we hit it off and you're like, I'm moving to Chicago. I'm going to be an actuary. I'm like, I just had my first year in Chicago. I'll probably be looking for a new roommate. You want to be roommates? And we didn't even know each other. And we first lived together. I mean, it was perfect though. It was such a blast. I think, how many years did we live together? 3?
3, I think.
Yeah.
And then you went and got a fiance and
I know. And then I moved out and oh my gosh, the stories and experiences especially that time when the air or the heat went out and we had to put our comforters in the like dryer to warm them up so we wouldn't freeze at night because we couldn't get the heater to work and the people to fix the heat. It was like it was the coldest winter that year.
It was the coldest winter in Chicago, and so we like doubled up on comforters and slept together for warmth, which is what you got to do.
And I remember this too, because you were still working at Aon, and at that time I was an independent contractor. So I would be at home, maybe some weeks I would travel Monday through Friday, other weeks I'd be at home because I wasn't working a project. And so you always were working long days, and I'm like, okay, honey, I'll fix you dinner tonight. And it was such a fun time of living together and had a flippin' blast. And
yes.
It was awesome. So yeah, I mean, there's so much. We could have a separate podcast about all those stories.
We could just tell our stories about that first years in Chicago. So I obviously know a lot about you and your background, and this is a money podcast, so I'd love to talk a little bit about money. And first, if you're comfortable with it, just sharing kind of what money was like for you growing up, and then how maybe your story changed. And I know we both went through kind of different money situations, especially in our 20s. So I'd love for you to kind of talk about that, and I can chime in because I had a similar experience.
Totally. Well, so growing up, I came from a really blue collar family. Neither of my parents went to higher education. One of my parents never actually even graduated high school. And so money was something that really impacted me in a way that I didn't realize like how much it impacted me until my adult life. But it was always this, like, it was never enough. Arguments always stemmed around money. It was the classic money doesn't grow on trees, that type of environment. And so all through my life, it was this, it wasn't taboo. Like my family talked about money. My siblings and I knew what my parents made. And that was through because of like filing for financial aid for college and stuff and needing to all that good stuff. And, in one part, as I was going through it, I was resentful for the experience when I was that young. But as I've gotten older, like I'm grateful for it. Like it helped me learn. And my parents were very much hands off. And for my siblings and I, it was, well, if you want something, you need to figure out a way that you can pay for it. And that was from having a car and getting an insurance and paying for insurance for the car and then paying for your gas that goes in the car. If you want to do extracurricular activities in school, like figure out how you're going to pay for it, get a job. Like if you want to go to college, pay for college, and also all this stuff. And that it was a really chaotic, like money created a chaotic environment when I was younger. And then as I graduated college and I had my first job, that was the first feeling of true independence from my parents. But I think the reason, like I'd always been pretty independent, but to then actually start creating, like to earning a salary, which I was working at Target and they pay decently well, especially living in Iowa. And that was like my first taste of income and being like, oh my gosh, I'm actually making a legitimate income. I can pay for my car payment, student loans, all this stuff. Did I have crazy amounts left over? No, but it afforded me opportunities to be able to live and experience life as I was working at Target. Fast forward when I made the leap to go, so I was in Target for a year, then I left Target, went to my bridge job at Wells Fargo, which a bridge job is a job that you take in order to create space in your life to free up time so you can really get clear on what you want to do, assuming that the ultimate goal is to leave corporate America and start your own business. So my bridge job was Wells Fargo, and I actually worked through a third-party agency at that time, not actually Wells Fargo. So that was a bigger risk than actually leaving corporate America altogether. But when I had made that leap in 2012 and I had done my first, I think it was like 8 months at the time or 9 months at the time, working in an independent contract capacity, I ended up like at 24, that was my first taste of six figures for an income. I tripled my income from the one that I had working in corporate America. And looking back now, because I'm 30, I didn't know how to handle that level of money. I didn't know the mindset around it. I became very attached to my self-worth. Like I know one thing that I've struggled with in my money journey, which going through Molly Sapp's course, the one that you went through as well, really helped me see that there was this underlying not enoughness with money, like not enoughness, like with who I am in relationships, whether it's friends or family or like intimate relationships. And it kept like poking its head, but going back to 2012 when I was like when this money was coming in and I was so young, I really justified that period of my life on why it was okay to spend the amount of money that I was spending, because I had then, for the first 24 years of my life, or 23 years of my life, I felt that I was living in this really restrictive experience. And so when I came to 24 and I started making all that money, I justified all my spending, purchases, and behaviors, because I was like, well, I just lived this way for 23 years. Like, I can do whatever I want. And it was just a really toxic environment. And through there, and after going through Molly Sapp's Money Mindset Bootcamp, I've really learned a ton about how to look at money and view it in a way to create a better and a more productive relationship with it, versus having it be a victim mentality relationship and a scarcity mindset.
Yeah, I love that. You shared so much right there.
Sorry.
And that's good. That's exactly what I want to hear. And I think a lot of other people want to hear that stuff too, because a lot of people don't feel totally comfortable talking about those things, like, oh, then all of a sudden I made a ton of money. Like, who's going to really, say that? But that's true. And that happens. And I think we went through that situation kind of at the same time. I was working as an actuary in the consulting world, and, I wasn't making six figures, but I was making good money. And I personally didn't have student debt. So we both, I wouldn't say like our lifestyle was toxic, but we got into this space of not understanding how to manage everything. And personally, I learned a lot from you. Living with you, I learned about opening multiple savings accounts through you. And I felt like we kind of learned together. And then we also went through a period of money being pulled back then, because I quit my job and went into the entrepreneurship world. You made that transition from independent contract work to really putting all of your stuff into She Did It Her Way. Share your experience with that.
Yeah, let's see, where do I go back? So 2012 was really lucrative. 2013 was lucrative. 2014 was lucrative. But as an independent contractor, it's an eat what you kill mentality. So if you don't have projects flowing in, like, you're not getting paid. Similar to being an entrepreneur, you're not selling courses, you're not selling your services, like, you don't get paid. Right. And I had become reactive to the situation, just assuming that projects would come in. But then there was a really key turning point where the projects started drying up. And as the projects were drying up, my spending habits didn't change. And so I had started accumulating all of this like debt, and it was a really scary time. And it was an unfortunate time because, well, no, I'm not gonna say unfortunate, because I really think like the money experiences that we have really help us learn. I mean, anything in life, that if it's difficult sometimes and we're like, this sucks, like, why are we going through it? Usually there is a growth opportunity on the other side. And so I really reeled back my lifestyle, but I was so focused on cutting things out versus making more money, which is one of the things that I'll, like, a takeaway that I would share with your group is I was focusing on eliminating, which, yes, you have to eliminate the unnecessaries, like non-necessities, and then really get clear on a budget and see what you're spending. But then the focus is like, how can you have a growth mindset to actually create more money? Where can I go out and find more money versus just sitting there waiting for it to come in? Right. So that period of my life, which I'm so thankful for, that like it is past, like it is all good. All my student loan debt is paid off. And now I am in the position, like, She Did It Her Way is like paying me, and it's awesome. But that was just a really, really chaotic time to learn about money. And I want to go back too, because I think people assume that it's only people that have a certain mentality that can have money issues or money blocks and money stories. But everyone, whether you're affluent, whether you come from like a background that I did, there's always money stories and money blocks there. And people don't talk about money a lot, because I think the environment and the way that we were raised is like, we didn't talk about it. And I'm thankful for your podcast and when people like you that do talk about it, because it's like a taboo subject. But if we talked about it and we realize how much more abundant and not feeling bad about making money because you are giving value to people, that is ultimately raising the level of consciousness and helping people grow, because there's infinite abundance. It's a good thing. So,
right. Yeah. And just to add to that, I mean, We talked about this quite a bit when we were living together too, in our many money conversations where we were probably both sitting on the kitchen counter. And it was the fact
With
that
wine.
yes, with wine always. We actually came from very different financial backgrounds. I came from a pretty affluent financial background, and you came from a different one. And we, however, still had even some of the same money blocks, and we still struggled with money in certain areas. And we also had very similar good habits with money too. And so I just remember having long conversations about like, wow, that is so interesting that we could adapt or adopt these certain mindsets from completely two different, not completely, we both grew up in, smaller towns in Iowa, smaller towns in the US, but in Iowa, but we shared that opportunity of being like, you can come from different places and still have these, setbacks or still have these limiting beliefs and still grow together and kind of learn together. So I thought that was a good experience that we had. And we were really lucky because we just openly would talk about things that I don't think a lot of people would talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing all of that. I feel like it's a powerful story to hear, and knowing just like the ebbs and flows, but also having that mindset, you adding in that mindset and working on your mindset was a big part of your money story. I want to get into the tangible tips round. We discussed before the podcast, you're going to share some productivity mindset hacks, because I've been really wanting this space to be more than just money and be talking about things like personal development and stuff. And I think productivity, organization, goal setting, all of that stuff has a huge impact on our money, and our money has a huge impact on it. I'd love for you to share what those are, and then we can give some also tangible money tips, because you've always been a great resource for me for money tips. So we'll talk about those too. But first, share with us your productivity mindset guru hacks.
Oh my gosh, I love like productivity. I love planning. I love trying to make things more efficient. One of the things that I personally do day in and day out, whether it's personal or business, is asking myself, if I'm doing a task, can I eliminate it? Can I automate it? Can I delegate it? And can this wait? Because sometimes we do things every single day that's just out of habit and autopilot. And really, we can ask ourselves, like, what's there that doesn't need to be there? Can I eliminate this? And if you can't eliminate it, then the question is this something that I'm doing all the time? And how can I automate it? And then if it's an automated, like, can I delegate this? And figuring out like how to move more stuff off of your plate, how to automate things so that you don't have to think about it. I'm huge on trying to take out, like, eliminate as many decisions as you can on a daily basis. So whether that's deciding your uniform, similar to how Mark Zuckerberg and then Steve Jobs would wear the same thing every day, or a lot of people are going towards a capsule wardrobe, because then you don't have to make so many decisions every day. I probably personally rotate between jean shorts, jean pants, the same jean pants, and then I have jean pants. That's a new one, right? Jeans.
I didn't even flinch. I was like, yeah, jean pants.
Yeah. Blue jeans. And then I have a white tank top, a white t-shirt, a black tank top, and a black t-shirt. And typically I usually rotate that if I'm not in my workout clothes, because I always go to 4:30 workout class.
I was just going to say, if you guys aren't following Amanda, I'm always watching your story and you're like everyday workout clothes.
So here's another example. I used to do ClassPass, which if people don't know what ClassPass is, it's you can pay a nominal amount of money and it pulls all of these classes within the network. So in Chicago, it taps into like 100 different workout places. And if I pay $119 a month, I can get 10 different workout classes. But then within those classes, you're limited because you can only do 2 workouts at a single studio a month. So I was having to make all these decisions about what time am I working out? Where am I working out at? And then I found myself just going down this rabbit hole. And then at the end of it, I wouldn't even schedule the workout. And so I'm like, well, this leaves me exhausted and energetically drained. So one of the gyms that I actually really enjoy in Chicago has an offering that if you work out on the off-peak times between 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m., they actually give you a discounted membership. And I was like, oh, this is awesome, because guess what? Then I only have a choice, one, A, to work out at the studio. B, it has to be between 8:30 and 4:30. And C, like, it limits any decision that I need to make. So I know that I'm always going to, assuming I don't have any random calls or I'm out of the office, I'm going to do a 4:30 workout. So then the only question has to be, am I going to do spin, high intensity, or yoga? And now I pretty much know on a weekly basis, or if I'm cycle syncing as a woman, like, when you're going through your menstrual cycle, you either walk or maybe you're going to do low intensity, whatever. It has eliminated all these decisions that I have to make, so I can systematize and create a routine in my day-to-day life, which also brings me to time batching your schedule on a day-to-day basis, but also weaving in like blocking your weeks. So there's certain weeks that you're going to do certain tasks. So certain weeks I really emphasize, like, make it a goal to do all things She Did It Her Way, like podcast, She Did It Her Way Society. So that might be email marketing, that might be recording podcast episodes, that might be recording intros. So really encouraging to do, like, block out weeks for different, like, strategy or content development, and like, or I'm out of the office this week, trying to systematize that. Some easy things too, like using Facebook newsfeed eradicators, so that when you log on from your desktop or your laptop, you don't see the statuses. If you're going to schedule coffee meetings with people, do it at the same coffee shop and do it on the same day, so you're not going in and out of your house all the time. Host all of your out of office activities on the same day, implement a scheduling tool like Calendly or Acuity, schedule your social media time, spend no more than 20 minutes a day on it if you can. Again, we're all human, so it's just getting into the habit of being focused on it. And another one is defend your calendar to avoid rescheduling. So really use your calendar as a end all be all. If it's on your calendar, don't really resist the urge to try and move it around just to fit everything in.
To me, you've always been really good at defending your calendar ever since I knew you. And that has always been like something that I think people are so easy to give up their time, and they don't recognize the value that their time has. Even if you are working in your 9-to-5 job, you still have so much value in the time that you're not working in your 9-to-5 job, because someone is paying for your time between 9 and 5, and now any time outside of that, even if it's friends that just want to hang out, but maybe they're doing something that you don't want to do. I mean, we can get into how this impacts just like your everyday life, right? To me, I've always learned from you that being really protective of your time and your calendar has been the most important thing for you, and I've personally adopted that into my life.
Well, thank you. I will definitely say it wasn't always like that, especially with when I was an independent contractor. I mean, weeks and months varied, and sometimes I didn't know I had a project until 2 weeks prior. So it was a lot of schedule shifting. It was a lot of meeting people one day for lunch or doing coffee the next day, versus how can I be focused and do all of these similar energy type activities in the same day. And instead of just defaulting to oh, let's grab coffee, how can you maybe propose a phone call instead? Because with coffee, it's not just the 30-minute coffee. It's the actually taking time to get ready, the travel time to leave your house, the actual coffee, and then assuming if that person's on time or not, then it's the you got to go back home. So there's just a lot more things involved than just a 30-minute coffee meeting. So being really focused and mindful of that.
Yeah. And one other thing you mentioned was the social media and scheduling your social media time. And I know something that you personally do, hopefully you're still doing this, is you don't have your phone by your bed, right? You're still doing that?
Oh, yeah. No. That was something, I've been doing that now for months, and it has definitely been a game changer. I used to plug my phone in by my bed, but now I keep it out in the den, and it's amazing. I do it at least, and I'm sure we'll get into this, the thing you do before in the morning and then at night. But yeah, I plug it in by my den, because otherwise I know that I have to put in these, not restrictions, but rules, because otherwise I'm not going to be successful. Because if that phone goes in with me in the bedroom, it's most likely that I will pick it up and I'll start scrolling on Instagram.
Yeah, and then you don't fall asleep until 1 a.m, and you're like, what is life? I just watched so many dance videos.
And it's being mindful of your environment to avoid potential triggers that don't make you feel good. And especially sometimes if you're not mindful and you get on Instagram and you see something that I actually just experienced this the other day. I had seen something on Instagram that immediately my emotional state dropped. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going on with me, my business? And you just go into this time warp and this silo that doesn't do anything for you. And so, and especially right before bed, you don't want that. You don't even want that right before bed. You don't want that anytime, but I mean, we're human. So how can you put in rules that help you defend and protect your energy in that way?
Yeah, I love that. I could talk about social media and its impact on us for days, but I'll spare you guys. Let's get into some money tips, because I know that you're just stock full of them. So I would love for you to share your 3 biggest, most tangible money tips that can help the listeners.
Yes. So the first one is to know where your money comes from and where you're spending it, and getting in the habit of going in daily. So my husband and I use an app called Mint, and for both my business and personal, it's part of my like morning startup routine to look at Mint and then to look at my business bank account. Because even just making the habit of spending 15 minutes a day being in there, knowing the charges that are coming in, knowing what's going out, what's expected, like just having and being able to talk intelligently about your money. And sometimes, like, I will tell you, it's more fun to look when you're like, oh, there's money coming in and it's all great. But 5 years ago, it was, I've been there where you're like, I don't even want to look at any of this. Like, this is so painful. I don't want to do it. But the sooner you start looking at it, the sooner you can start taking control of it. And the sooner you can start changing your habits, you can start changing the way you live your life, and like make that first step to the type of like money story and environment you want. So that's the first one, like make a daily habit of checking your money. Number 2 is also separating your money into different accounts. Especially, I do this with business, especially because Profit First with Mike Michalowicz, which you've obviously read and then have been certified. It has been so helpful when you are a business owner looking at when the money comes in, how do you manage it? Because it is so in flux. And that was the thing that I struggled with the most as an independent consultant, because one year I might have made $10,000, or not year. The one month it might have been $10,000. Well, the next month it might have been $3,000. So how do I create, consistency every single month, and how do I pay myself? So really using separate accounts and read Profit First is number 2. And then number 3, this one, it's tangible, but it takes a little bit of time, is like really dive into your history. Look at like how your parents handled money, look at what people said about money or people are saying about money that you hang out with, and just start being aware of what's going on around you, because awareness is a first step to any sort of long-term sustaining change.
Yes, I totally agree. And that brings you back to the first tip that you gave, which was just check your money, and building that kind of awareness too on like what's coming in, what's going out. You can pick up so much from, what are your habits? What are the things that you find you spend money on that that add up, that you don't even realize or that you don't typically think about? And I think that a lot of people get into the habit of taking a passive approach and not checking it because it's uncomfortable. But like you said, once you do start checking it, the faster you can implement strategies to change that, and the faster you can actually make change. So
yeah. And it's exciting. I mean, I don't know this, like another thing was also like what was helpful for my husband and I, because like this year we have 7 different weddings, 3 of which between the 2 of us were in. I think 4 of them we are getting on a plane. So we have now looked, instead of just doing a month by month budget for weddings and then just throwing a number on there and being like, oh, okay, I think this covers it. We really actually went month by month to discuss, okay, what bachelor parties this month, what bachelorette, what wedding. And then we've put a budget, and then we divided it by how many months are left in the year. And then that's actually now our monthly like budget that we set. And so not just looking at the 1 month, but looking at the total year and travel or what's coming up, and then how can you like expect those things to happen every single month and be aware of them and not be surprised by them.
Yes. I love that. I love my weddings and gifts account, and I'm sure all the people whose weddings I attend love it too.
I loved it when you came to mine.
Oh, well, of course. You can't not go to a wedding in wine country with your roommate of 3 years. Okay, let's talk about this. I'm excited about this question because I just feel like, I don't know, it twists things up. What is one piece of money advice that just doesn't work for you, and what do you do instead?
I would say when I look back at my childhood, now knowing what I know now, is when it's not just one thing, but it's when I encounter people that have a really scarce mindset around money, or they say like making money is hard, or it's this like negative take on money.
Or
it's
even
not
like
that
you have to work really hard for money.
Yes. And that was something because my dad is a hard labor. I mean, he works overnight restocking parts at a machine place in Dubuque. And so I saw him that you have to work really hard. And for a long time, I believed that like if you don't work hard, then you can't reap the rewards. But in reality, when you're doing something you enjoy and you create this effortless energy and environment around it, like making money can be easy if you allow it to be easy. And there's so many layers that happens. Even when I say that, when I used to think that, I'm like, yeah, but wait, are you sure it should be hard? And now it's no, I've seen it. It's possible. People make money. It's really easy. Like if I know it's easy, then it's possible. Then of course I can do that too. Right. So yeah, that would definitely be one of the pieces that just doesn't sit with me anymore.
Mm-hmm. And I think I grew up with that mindset too. My dad told me the exact same thing. And I think, you almost feel like you need to listen to that because it's your older generation telling you that like you're supposed to work really hard for money. And then, I don't know, we've entered this world where people think a lot more broadly about those topics.
Yeah. And it's not even, and it's more than just money too, right? People, I mean, I used to think that if what I was doing wasn't difficult and it was like quote unquote too easy, then it probably wasn't something I need to be doing. When in reality, there's this entire group of people that are loving what they do. It's so effortless. Like, yes, there's work involved, but it's not this physical pushing myself hard work every day, and are having a blast with it and making a ton of money. And it's this mentality that we have to do something that is really hard in order to be successful. And that's not the case at all.
So true. I love that. I love all of the tangible money tips that you gave. So I think it's time to go into our quick and dirty Q&A round. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
I wish I had some music like pew, 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 but I don't.
You should weave that in post-production.
Be like, ooh, yeah.
Da-da-da. Yeah.
Okay. What is one non-negotiable money indulgence that you refuse to cut out of your budget?
Travel.
Yeah. But you're a pretty good travel hacker.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Travel hacking. Yes. Like, yeah. You have to like, as long as you're smart about it and you keep track and you are strategic with your credit cards, you can travel hack. I don't think between the projects and things that I've traveled for clients and then earning miles and everything, I maybe have paid for less than 5 flights in the past 6 years. So yeah, but traveling and actually like traveling now in the 30s versus the early 20s. So staying at nicer places, going out to nicer dinners, and really putting that into the budget and not feeling guilty when I go to a place and spend that money.
Yeah, I love that. What is one investment that you firmly believe has helped you get ahead?
I would say investing in myself. And through that, by investing in proper mentors and coaches. So always learning, like doing a just-in-time learning versus learning for the sake of learning. So really thinking about where you're at in your business or in your life and taking inventory about what is the thing that I need right now. Is it strategy? Is it learning to blog? Is it managing money? Like what is it? And then seeking out and assessing different coaches, interviewing them, asking them about their programs, asking them about like success stories, and investing in the right coach too.
Yes. And I feel like that applies to books too, because maybe some people don't know like what kind of coach they would hire. But even if you're sitting down to read a book, what is the first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning and the last thing you do before bed?
So when I wake up, I make the bed, I go to the bathroom, brush my teeth, wash my face, go out to the kitchen, drink 2 glasses of water, sit down and do my meditation. Then I'll change into workout clothes, do the 5-minute journal, and then I'll either read or journal. And that takes anywhere from an hour to an hour 20. And then at night, I'll limit the electronics an hour before bed, which is typically between 8 and 8:30 because I like to go to bed, ideally between 9 and 9:30. Brush my teeth, wash my face, do 5-minute journal, and then read for however long until I get tired so then I can go to bed.
Dang. Most people are like, and you're just like, I got it down.
I like it. It's just, I like being on a routine. Now, I used to be really bad where if I got into an environment or a position where I couldn't be that routine, it would bother me, which now it's way better. Like, obviously you can't do the routine all the time and maybe I don't follow it when I'm on vacation, but when I can control and influence what that looks like, then yeah, I try to stay true to that routine.
A book, app, or your favorite tool that you would recommend?
One of the books that I just finished was Storybrand by Don Miller. He also has a podcast, Storybrand Podcast. Highly recommend either one, reading the book or going into the podcast and listening to season 1, which is really helpful. Great book about understanding your customer journey and how your business is actually helping your customer as the guide and to help you make your customer the hero. So I'm hesitant to say this like tool recommendation because I just got it a couple days ago. But the reason why I got it is because it showed signs of things that I really enjoyed from previous planners, but it wasn't all in one. And that is the Full Focus Planner by Michael Hyatt. And it's a really, like, so far I really like it. He lists out different types of goals, achievement goals, habit goals. You have your weekly big 3 that you want to accomplish. You've got your daily big 3. You've got your calendar. You write down your startup morning ritual for your morning ritual, your evening ritual, and then you've got your work startup ritual and your work shutdown ritual. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how it goes. So far, I really like it. Michael Hyatt's amazing. He's also really good for leadership and productivity too.
Nice. Keep me updated on that. I'll have to look into it. I don't know. You'd have to rip me away from my bullet journal though, and I'm pretty attached. Actually, it sounds like it's a little bit different though. It's not like a scheduler, or is it kind of both?
It's, actually, I would say there's a little bit of a bullet journal like feel to it because you can move tasks, you can create tasks. It's very fluid. But the one thing I do like is that it has specific quarterly reviews. So each notebook you get is only for a quarter, but it has weekly reviews, quarterly reviews. So you're constantly going back and assessing, okay, what did I get done this week? Why maybe didn't I get it done? And it goes back to, can I eliminate? Can I automate, delegate? Can this wait type thing? So you're just constantly reviewing your goals. You're constantly making sure that you're on track to reach those goals. And it's got that like built-in habit tracker as well, because I know that you like to create that in the bullet journal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, Miss Boleyn, tell us where we can find you. What's hoppin' over on Hoppin'? What's happening? What's happening?
Yeah, well, especially too, like if you guys, like the listeners, you guys found this to be helpful, or you want to hear more about my story and journey, or ever want to reach out, I mean, absolutely find me on, you can head to shediditherway.com to check out the podcast, Her Way Society, and She Did It Her Way Summit, or you can follow us at She Did It Her Way. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then my personal is just at Amanda Boleyn. So feel free to reach out, DM. Instagram DM is definitely the best way to get direct contact with me, because that is where I spend a lot of my time from a social media standpoint when I'm on social media.